Welcome in, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. Yes, indeed. Here we go. Wanted to get on the show here and discuss a couple of or three topics that kind of interested me today. Share my thoughts on those with you. I know it's an abnormal time. If you notice, I'm kind of bouncing around in terms of trying to find the right time, see who I can reach at these different periods and whatnot. So just getting on here. So what I'll do is I'll give a few minutes, see if anyone pops up in the chat. And then if not, we'll go ahead and get it going. But yeah, like I said, just had some thoughts. I think I got a pretty interesting show here today with some interesting topics. Obviously, we got the Jets, we got Deshaun Watson, which is like, whoa. And then got Tyreek Hill. So definitely interested to share with you what was on my mind regarding these topics. And part of the reason I'm going a little earlier tonight is obviously because we got the big presidential candidate debate later on. So I want to sit back and watch that. Contrary to popular belief, it's not always sports with me. So yeah, definitely want to check that out when I get done here. So it's not that serious. What's good, bro? Good to see you. So yeah, like I said, got these topics here, and I wanted to just come on to the show, go live, and share them with you and see what we got going. All right, looks like we got some people starting to come in. Slowly but surely, they're trickling in. So you know what time it is. You know what we do. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't. This one was weird to me, right? I initially thought about let's see. Hold on. Niners could have the new Justin Tucker. Yeah, their kicker looks pretty good. I would think, though, let me go back to this real quick. I would think that the new Justin Tucker, maybe not quite the leg, but in terms of elite accuracy, is probably Harrison Butker from Kansas City. That guy's a really, really good kicker. So I would think that might be the new Justin Tucker. All right. So, yeah, Deshaun Watson. When I first thought about this topic, I was thinking about how poorly he played and how poorly the Browns played the other day on Sunday. And it was interesting because I had actually chosen the Browns to win that game against Dallas, because I'm thinking, well, they're at home. They have an elite defense. I still don't believe in Dak Prescott, even though he got the bag. Jerry Jones. But anyway, yeah, I thought that that defense would be able to get after him. They being the Dallas Cowboys, don't have much of a run game. The run game they got was by committee, 25 carries, 102 yards on Sunday. But again, that was by committee. Zeke, 10 carries for 40 yards. Not terrible, but nowhere near the Zeke we once knew. Rico Dowdle, never even heard of this kid. 8 carries for 26 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 3 carries for 25 yards. And couple of guys down the line, 1 carry here, 1 carry there. So nothing really impressive. Obviously, no bell cow back anymore. But yeah, I really was under the impression that the Cleveland Browns would be able to win this game. I thought they would. And lo and behold, they got handled. They almost got doubled up on. Cowboys win 33-17. And so Deshaun Watson played an absolutely terrible game, like a horrendous game. And I'm watching this thing and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about the topic. And my first thought was, in terms of the on the field stuff, is this the worst trade and the worst contract in NFL history? Because obviously Houston trades, he forced the trade. He sat out for a year and then he got traded to Cleveland. So then Cleveland gives him I want to say 5 years, the $230 million fully guaranteed contract, the first of that amount and that length in NFL history. And so, I know a lot of people that thought this was signaling a changing of the guard in the way contracts were given out and the contracts would be structured going forward in the NFL. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And let me give my thoughts on that before we go forward, right? I can see both sides of the coin. So we know the NFL is one of the most physical games. It's one of the most dangerous games. You could die on the field. We saw Damar Hamlin almost die on the field the other day. Guys are constantly getting injured just because of the level of physicality, even though they've made the game considerably less physical over time than it used to be, right? So the argument could be that these players deserve fully guaranteed contracts. I totally get that. Now you flip it to the other side and you say, well, if I'm an owner, right? Because this is a business as well as entertainment, as well as a sport full of competition, right? Why would I give fully guaranteed contracts to guys that I know there is a very high chance that they're going to get injured? Why would I give them a fully guaranteed contract? That doesn't make sense from a business standpoint, right? So I get that. Also, on the other side, on that same side, you see a lot of times, obviously not in the NFL because you almost never see fully guaranteed contracts, but in the NBA, you see a lot of times guys go off in their contract year, they get paid, and then they get fat and happy. And, it's like, whoa, what happened? You don't get the same player again once they sign that mega deal, right? And so for that reason, I generally haven't been a proponent of fully guaranteed contracts. I'm a proponent of earn stuff, right? And you will be compensated properly for what you're worth. Just earn it, right? And I often give the example of Joe Flacco. Now, his deal wasn't fully guaranteed, but I often say Joe Flacco should have never, ever been the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. But at one point he was. And why was he? Because he wanted a new deal. Bisciotti didn't want to, give him the money that he was looking for. So he bet on himself, went out, had one of the greatest postseason runs in history, and won a championship. And that's what I've often said about Dak. Like, you want this money, just go out there and earn it. And for those people who say, well, Dak, the Cowboys have to do a better job of putting more talent around Dak, stop that. It's a lie and it's a false narrative, because more than once in Dak's career, he's had the most all-pro selections with the Cowboys, and he's had the most Pro Bowlers. So it's not like there's not talent around him. He also has a Super Bowl championship level head coach, right? He's got a coach that has won a championship, and under the stewardship of said head coach, he's had some of the best seasons of his career, right? So we got to stop acting like Dallas has not done everything to put Dak in a position to have success. Anyway, so Deshaun Watson gets this deal a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I would have done that. But they were so desperate for a guy that they thought could be a quarterback to get them to the next level. Obviously, he was at the time one of the best quarterbacks in the league, playing for the Houston Texans, right? And so we can look here and we can see what Deshaun Watson was doing at that time, right? If you look at the 2020 season, he led the league in passing, 4,823 yards. He had 33 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. Like, that's crazy, right? He led the league in yards per attempt, 8.9. You can see that. So he was really doing his thing. He was playing extremely well. So 2 years before that, over 4,000 yards passing. Year before that, 3,800 yards passing. So he was really playing well. And then blah, 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 everything pops up in Houston. He wants out of there. So he says he's going to sit out for a year. And then once that happens, out come all these allegations of craziness in terms of the massages and all that stuff, right? And I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on that. But it was a weird situation, because one of the things I often point to is Deshaun Watson. A lot of people want to light him up for the whole massage thing, right? But what I often point to is that he was investigated twice, I think indicted twice in the state of Texas for these alleged crimes. We got to say alleged because he's never convicted of anything, right? He settled out of court with the accusers, multiple accusers. So anyway, he was indicted twice, and both times the grand jury chose not to pursue charges. So I think that's very interesting that you have a black man in the state of Texas indicted twice. Both times the grand jury decided they weren't going to pursue charges. So to me, that says that maybe there wasn't a whole lot to these allegations, but we live in a different era where we have to believe everyone who says something happened. All right, cool. So next up, He ends up going to Cleveland. Cleveland hands him the bag, $230 million fully guaranteed, largest contract in history at the time. All right, he gets that, and then he still has to go through all the stuff in terms of all his cases that are hanging over him. I think at one point it was like 60 something women coming out accusing him of sexual misconduct during these quote unquote massage sessions and all that. So, he was fighting it. He just ends up paying out the settlement. And then he had, I think in his first season in Cleveland, the league handed him an 11-game suspension, right? Okay, whatever. So he's got that. And he's never been the same since he's arrived in Cleveland. He has never come close to being the Deshaun Watson that we expected to see, the one that played in Houston. Last year, he comes back, and I think he only played 6 games because he got injured. Let's look at those stats again. Last year he was injured, only played 6 games. Now, he was 5-1 in those games, but that's more so because of that elite defense, only completing 61% of his passes. I mean, just not good. 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, just far off of his level of productivity and his level of efficiency that we saw when he was with the Houston Texans. So you're watching Deshaun Watson now, and you're like, what happened? This is not the same dude. So now that's 2 years in a row that Cleveland is not getting any return on the investment that they put out, giving this guy all this money. All right. Now he comes back this season, and in his first game, what do we have here? In his first game, absolutely terrible. They play against the Cowboys, and this is what you get from Deshaun Watson. 24 of 45, 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, a QBR of 9.3. Absolutely horrendous. Just a terrible, terrible performance. And you're like, man, this is where I came up, just looking at that, looking at those stats, looking at that game. This is where I started thinking, like, this might be a topic. Is this the worst deal in NFL history? Because it's really bad. There we go. So here's the other thing, right? Good stuff, Tyler. Counts $73 million against the cap the next 2 seasons with no escape by cutting him. Talk about job security. And I don't know exactly what Cleveland is trying to do cap-wise or free agency-wise or trade-wise, because they restructured his deal before this season started so that they put his money into a bonus. So he got $44 million up front before the season even started. So that's a heck of a deal. But yeah, he played absolutely horribly, against the Cowboys. I want to say the Cowboys defense got 6 sacks. I mean, he just looks nothing like the Deshaun Watson of old. But even more so than his problems on the field, we have another issue with Deshaun Watson. So Rob Parker and Chris Broussard were discussing this on The Odd Couple, I think, last night. So I got a clip here. I want you to hear that, and then we'll come back and discuss it further.
That's right, Chris. And it is a very disappointing story because a new civil lawsuit has been filed in Houston accusing Deshaun Watson of sexual assault and battery from an incident in October of 2020. According to the filing, the lawsuit alleges that on a first date with a woman, while she was in the bathroom applying makeup, she came to her bedroom and to find Watson completely naked on her bed, face down on his stomach, requesting that she massage his buttocks. Things progressed as Watson turned over, demanded that she massage him, this time gesturing towards his groin. Somehow, Watson asked her what she wanted to do instead. She said she didn't want to do this. And he ended up partially disrobing her, penetrating her vagina without consent, implicit or explicit, before she eventually manages to escape. Grabbing a heavy piece of decor for self-defense, Watson, taken aback, quote, stormed out of her apartment following her.
And this is a civil suit.
Civil lawsuit. The NFL has declined comment, and you recall that he was suspended for 11 games from the previous slew of incidences.
Right.
Should be noted that in their punishment, the NFL reserved the right to revisit any additional punishment
if there were any
should more information come out involving any of the previous cases. Because this is a new case, we'll see how that goes from there.
And this is also, because initially when I saw the headline and I'm reading it and I read the dates, it felt like initially it was just, not that this was okay, but it was more of the same, right? It was like, okay, another woman's come forward. Interesting, why didn't she get involved in that other lawsuit? But once you read the details, she's alleging rape.
Right.
Like that's a whole, because none of the other ones were rape.
It was
like
about,
that,
right.
You know?
It was a massage that turned sexual.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yes,
But not,
yes.
She's saying she was forcibly raped. Right.
Yeah.
And we
so
don't know,
obviously
and Chris, we always say that. These are alleged allegations. Nobody knows. He hasn't been convicted of anything, so we should start from there. And I'll say this, Chris, and a man is innocent until proven guilty, and that's not what I'm saying here. But there comes a times when you can just decide this is not what you want anymore. And I'm talking about the distraction of it all. And it would be different if Deshaun Watson was playing quarterback well, Chris. You know, you'll bend over backwards.
It would. Kobe Bryant.
Right, Kobe Bryant, who had a rape case on him.
He was going to trial, flying to trial, and then flying back to play in a game that night from Colorado to LA. I was covering that series with the Spurs.
That would never happen today, but it was a different time. Yep. And the NBA was cool with it, that he flew the Lakers plane. Like, nobody thought anything of it. Like, that wouldn't happen today.
And again, to your point, innocent until proven guilty.
No doubt. And here, my only point on, if I'm the Browns, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. We made a bad deal, Chris. We signed a guy. We thought we were getting the All-Pro, Pro Bowl quarterback who was dynamic and all that. We thought we were getting them. That didn't happen. And now here we are off to a bad start to the season, and now the distraction of yet more baggage or more issues involving Deshaun Watson. If I'm the Browns ownership or front office, I don't know if I think I don't want to deal with it anymore and have to figure out, Chris, do I find lawyers to look for moral turpitude, to find something in the contract
clause where you can get out of the contract.
Where you can get out of the contract and say, because of this, we're not going to pay you, or you know what I mean? And moral clauses are put into these kind of deals all the time.
So crazy, right? To think that Deshaun Watson, and you know what, this is starting to make me think that first, my first thought when I heard about this was, where was she when all these other cases were going on? Then my second thought was, okay, if she alleges that he raped her, like, why is it a civil case? Immediately that makes me think money grab. Now I know that's not the best thing to say in the Me Too era and the believe all women era. But I think the big thing here is the fact that she's now coming forward after he already settled those other cases, and it's a civil case. She's probably hoping that he'll settle it to make it go away, because no one is going to believe anything that he has to say in his defense on a topic like this, on an accusation like this, based on the past and based on how many women previously accused him of, sexual misconduct. And it's tough, man. Again, our criminal justice system is supposed to be built on innocent until proven guilty. And this is not, I'm not trying to take this show there, but real quick, it's not innocent until proven guilty when you're in a situation where there's a woman accusing a man of something. That man now has to prove himself innocent. It's actually the opposite. It's guilty until proven innocent. And even if he should beat the case, the other problem now becomes the other problem now becomes that whether he beats the case or not, there is the how do I want to say this? There is the perception of him that's probably never going to go away, that people think that he's a degenerate or he's a sexual predator or what have you. And it's tough, man. Now, I'm sure he made some mistakes, that did some things he wishes he could take back, but it's tough. So now back to the football part, what Rob Parker was saying, and I think, and Chris Broussard, are the Cleveland Browns at this point now looking for some type of out legally in this contract, like moral turpitude or whatever? Are they looking for something to get out of it and get out from under all that money? Like, that's problematic. And it's bad overall that you have a situation like this. And to their point, if he had been healthy all this time and he was lighting it up when he gets on the field, well, then we know that people will fight night and day for a player that's dominant, right? I always like to point back to, again, different time, but late 1980s, early 90s, for the New York Giants, teammates literally had to go and get Lawrence Taylor out of a crack house on Sunday morning before a game. Like, that literally happened. That's not my opinion. That's a real thing. And so we say that to say that exceptions will be made for exceptional people and exceptional players. We see that all the time. So this whole thing, man, this is tough. You got the off the field drama going on with Deshaun Watson. And of course, that's also going to bring, I'm sure, women's groups, et cetera. We know that the Cleveland Browns were protested when they first signed him. And I'm sure the protests will kind of rear their ugly heads again and start back up. So we know that's going on. And then The fact is he's not playing well on the field. So I'm sure this stuff is messing with his mind, and maybe his skill set is not the same as it once was, after having sat out a year, and then he had the 11-game suspension. Then he comes back for the 6 games, super rusty. Then he gets hurt again last season, misses 11 games out of 17. And now he comes back in his first game back. He gets manhandled and mollywopped. So I don't think we ever see the Deshaun Watson again that we saw with the Houston Texans. I think it's a very bad spot to be in for everyone involved. And the question is now, are the Cleveland Browns looking for a way to try and get out of this? Can Deshaun Watson beat this case? And even if he does, his reputation, I don't think, can ever be repaired or recovered, man. So this is tough. And so that brings me back around to the original subject of the topic. Was this the worst contract in NFL history? Because right now it looks bad. Not only did you pay this dude a bunch, but you gave him a fully guaranteed deal, knowing everything that was going on with him. And then on top of that, now he has another case pop up. And this one, sounds like it was even worse than the first one. So, I mean, it's just bad overall, man. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm hoping it's not true, because you never want to see something like that. But then the other part of that is, even if it's not true, his name has been smeared forever, right? And I guess you could countersue her, for the slander and the defamation of character, etc. But at the end of the day, like, people think about you what they think about you already. So even if you were to countersue, number one, what would you get? She's probably a semi-regular person, not a person that has a whole lot of resources for you to go after. And then secondly, you're going to be looked at not only as, a sexual deviant, but you're also going to be looked at as a bully going after the little person who is just trying to, do whatever. And I'm sure a lot of people are on her side and believe her. Salam Sneed, what's going on, my brother? How are you, man? Good to see you in here. Good to see you. So yeah, man, this Deshaun Watson thing it's crazy. I do think it's the worst deal in the history of the NFL. And it's amazing to me that people actually thought that this would become the norm because he got that fully guaranteed deal. And now I'm sure some people are going to point to the Dak Prescott and say, well, he got 231 in total guarantees, where Deshaun Watson got 230 fully guaranteed, but not quite the same, apples to oranges. But, we'll see where these deals going forward. And I'm not going to get into the Dak thing again. Y'all already know what my thoughts and my opinions are on Dak Prescott. So at this time, what I'm going to do is yes, Need. Yeah, your Browns are in a bad way, brother. Bad way. And I don't know how much you heard on my of my soliloquy regarding Deshaun Watson, but even if he didn't do this, I mean, people think what they think already, and he's not playing up to a level where his play can overcome that. I referenced earlier back in the late 80s, early 90s, where you had a guy like Lawrence Taylor, an all-time great, literally having to be taken out of a crack house on game day by his teammates. But guess what? He was that elite of a player that he could get away with it. So it is what it is. Yeah. I feel you. Don't blame Watson, blame the front office, because they didn't have to give him that deal, right? And what was he going to turn that down? 230 fully guaranteed? Of course not, So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead right now, and I'm going to open up the phone lines, 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. I put it in the chat, and of course, it's also scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, I would love to hear from some of you regarding this topic. I know it's touchy and I know it's dangerous, but it's a major topic in the sports world today, and that's what we do. I want to believe I navigated that properly and fairly, so hopefully I won't get lit up or hit by YouTube regarding that. So yeah, let's take this call. Sneed, what's up, my brother?
Bruce, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right, man. Give me your thoughts.
Man, so I'm my team.
Say again, you were breaking up there. Say that again.
I'm from Cleveland, and this is my team.
Right.
And that's the quarterback I'm stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
When the GM decided to offer that contract, when you look at the structure, that's the problem with the contract. It's not even the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
It's the structure of the deal. When they offered it to him and he signed it, I said it was awful.
Mm-hmm.
I knew they were going to regret it. They mortgaged the future on a guy who was having legal issues. And when you were talking about production outweighing the risk, well, now you don't have that production and you have all this risk. You might as well take that money and just throw it out the window. Like open the window, turn on a fan, and just start throwing the money at the window.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? Write a check to St. Jude, bro.
Yeah.
And just write it off your taxes. And the worst part about this, Bruce, I'm watching a guy like Baker Mayfield be a serviceable quarterback in Tampa Bay.
He's better than serviceable in Tampa Bay.
You know, like he wins games, and they're happy with him. And he was a guy who here was playing hurt, injured, too tough for his own good. So here's what the Browns did: they swapped their future, which included Baker Mayfield as a high draft pick, like the highest.
Right.
For Watson, because they thought this is a proven commodity.
Yes.
He's an all-pro talent, a unique talent, and all those things are true. But that thing hanging over him is so risky.
Yeah.
And they just didn't play it right. It's a fireable offense as a GM. The GM, and I don't call for people's jobs, but it is absolutely a fireable offense to offer that contract to a player with so much question marks.
Yeah. It's desperation. But yes, the owner had to sign off on that too, though. So it's not just the GM. But go ahead.
No, this is a problem from the top down. This is dysfunction of the highest order, and it's been this way for a long time. Now, I don't blame the owner for trying, because that's what it is, Bruce. It's a bet. They bet that the upside from Watson was going to be better and worth the risk over Mayfield, and it just hasn't played out that way. So they bet, they lost. And it's not like, oh, we have to wait and see. Dog, it's been 3 years. You know what I'm saying, Bruce? There's nothing left to see. I mean, you tell me how you feel about any future of any of this improving. I don't see it.
Yeah, and I think, to me, the biggest thing is that he's not playing well enough to be able to overcome that. Like, if he was getting busy, you know, the Browns would be fighting and working to they would be doing everything they could to kind of, I don't know whether cover this up or help him through it or what have you, but he's not playing well. So that makes you expendable. And that's when, I don't know if you heard the clip that we played from The Odd Couple where Rob Parker and Chris Broussard were talking about, you know, maybe Cleveland now starts getting lawyers to look through this contract. Is there some morals clauses in there that we can use to get rid of him and, you know, not have to pay this money? And then hopefully that gets you exempt under, you know, you don't have the salary cap hit, right? Because it's not just you're cutting him just to cut him, but now you have a different way that situation broke. So you do that. And then the question now becomes, well, what do you do at the quarterback position? Because he was old, but Joe Flacco played his butts off for you guys last year. And now it's like, okay, well, you let him go. Is Jameis Winston going to get you what you need? We'll see. I mean, you know, if there's any type of what's the word I'm looking for? If the NFL follows its own model, pretty soon here, Deshaun Watson's going to be on the commissioner's exempt list, so Jameis is going to have to get these starts, right? Right. Or if history, you know, follows itself, then God forbid he's going to end up getting injured at some point this season. He hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while either. So it's going to be one or the other. So Jameis is going to get his time on the field, and we'll see. Hopefully for Cleveland, I'm a Ravens fan, obviously, but hopefully for Cleveland, that doesn't happen until Nick Chubb gets back. So then you get another major piece of that offense back to kind of help bolster and make things easier for Jameis Winston and make things easier for that defense.
You know, you brought up the point about lawyers sifting through the contract. The Browns, they built that contract. Like, if they needed lawyers to realize how stupid they are, I mean, that is absurd. They wrote it. You know, the agent and Deshaun signed it. You know what I mean? It was negotiated. They know exactly what's in it. So I hope the Browns front office gets exactly what they deserve. You know, life is full of lessons. Life is full of lessons. I mean, this is what it is.
It is.
There are outcomes to the decisions that you make, whether negative or positive. There are outcomes. You will be given what you deserve. It always works out that way.
It does.
So they gambled, they lost, and then things were kind of like looking up, like they overachieved a little bit last year, in my opinion, based on all that transpired. And, a little bit of some other things. But I mean, I really hope they bottom out
Mm-hmm.
and that they understand the gravity of these decisions that they make as a franchise. Like, you keep saying next year and this and that. This is nonsense. You have the foundation of your franchise. Is there any more important position in any sport that isn't an individual sport?
No, there is not.
And this guy is at the massage parlor getting it in. Unstoppable. Cannot be corrected. Cannot be fixed.
You know what, Sneed? One of these days, you and I are going to talk offline. I have some thoughts about that I don't want to share publicly, but we're going to have a talk offline about that. But yeah, that's a weird situation. Obviously, with that many accusations, I think the guy's got a bit of a freak in him. But all right, I'm gonna leave it there. Yeah, a lot of accusations, a lot of stuff going on. It's tough. And you're right. Cleveland gave him the deal. Deshaun Watson, he wasn't going to turn it down. $230 million fully guaranteed. Yeah, give me that. You know what I'm saying? So,
it's crazy, Bruce. You probably remember Josh Gordon.
I do.
In my opinion, possibly a better talent at his position than Deshaun Watson, because Watson has accuracy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Watson isn't a very accurate quarterback. Never really was.
Well, but I don't know if
Gordon was an absolute stallion. He never even practiced, and he was running routes that were elementary, but just the talent was so pure that he broke records in like 3/4 of a season.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this. I don't necessarily agree with you that Watson had accuracy issues. He does now. But when he was in Cleveland, so his first season in the league, everybody has an adjustment, right? 62%. Sure. The following season, 68%, 67%, 70%. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he had a stretch there where I guess he was really in command of that system. He was, I think he had Andre Johnson for a little while. He was
Will Fuller.
There you go. Right. So he had weapons. He understood the system. He had solid offensive coaching. I think he was playing under Bill O'Brien. Right. So at that point, the accuracy was there. It seems to have completely left him. So it's tough, man. It's tough. I hear you, Sneed.
All right, and then one last thing before I let you go. Mm-hmm. I'm the type of dude, I admit when I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers didn't look bad yesterday.
I don't think he did, but I also don't think they didn't do everything to help him. But it was game one, so
Right, but what I'm saying, I have to admit where I'm wrong, and this goes out to Transformer, my brother, right?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers looked good in the pocket, surprisingly better than I thought he would be I thought he would have happy feet. I thought he would try to scramble. I think, obviously his speed is going to be, he's slower now. He's older. He's off injury. He was pretty effective. I mean, I'm just evaluating his play. The outcomes they lost.
No, I get it.
He's able to he threw a couple of nice throws, some darts. He had a couple of crappy throws, but who doesn't?
Right.
So I'm admitting
he
was
missed
wrong.
the whole year,
He was better than I thought he was going to be,
Right. Yeah, appreciate that. Transformer, I'm sure will love to hear that, right? It's like I tell my son, as a man, when you're wrong, you gotta stand up and say it and just move on from that. Learn from it and move on. It's not a big thing.
Yeah.
We men don't have difficulty accepting accountability for our flaws.
True.
I'll leave it there. All right, Steve, man. Great talking to you as always. I appreciate the call, brother. Thanks so much for the support.
Appreciate you.
All right, man. Do we have anybody else that wants to call and give your thoughts on this Deshaun Watson craziness? Whether it's his declined play on the field, or whether it's all the madness that's going on with him off the field, and including him catching a new case, at least a civil one anyway.